You have been listening to officials there in Santa Barbara County give an update on their investigation. And what we learned is that in addition to the 4 bodies that have been recovered, 4 more bodies have been found on the ocean floor next to that sunken vessel. Let's bring in Mark Neveau, former FEMA administrator. What we also learned today is just how long this response was. 2 hours. That really goes to show and say a lot about the intensity of this fire.
Yeah, it takes a while for the Coast Guard, especially at 3 a.m. There's probably not crews in that area. They've got to get out there. They've got to start the firefight. You know, Ventura was involved in it. And also on these boats, they're diving with not just compressed air in their tanks, but they've got tanks on those boats that have nitrox, which is nitrogen and oxygen. And it's a higher concentration of oxygen than is typically found in regular scuba tanks. The idea with that is that a diver can go down longer and deeper. But the trouble with that is if there's a fire on the boat, that oxygen is in higher concentration, will just create the intensity of the fire is ramped up 100-fold.
All right, let me ask you, at this stage in the game, I mean, we did hear from the Coast Guard captain there a moment ago, and she said that they are still in a search and rescue operation mode, if you will. But obviously she warned everyone to be prepared for what she called the worst outcome. What do you think is the likelihood of still at this point finding survivors?
Well, we also heard that they've got a family reunification system or area set up at one of the fire stations, which tells me they're starting to get family that want to find out what's going on. So although they are in a response mode, they're quickly recognizing this is probably going to be a recovery operation because of the period of time that the boat has been under the water.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to be looking at, you know, what was taking place on the boat at the time of this fire, also at any safety aspect related to this fire. But when you're looking at this, I mean, at 3 a.m., everyone's sound asleep below deck. You have the crew members above. I mean, is there anything that you can sort of point out right now?
Well, typically in that operation, they're probably up getting ready to fix breakfast for everybody that wants to start their first dive very early in the morning. So it's not unusual that they would be up. I think what is unusual in this particular case is that there was no ability, it appears, to get down underneath the deck area where the sleeping quarters are to get people out. Sounds like the crew had to abandon ship fairly quickly. Now, that's a summation on my part. But it sounds like because of the intensity,
maybe there just wasn't time.
Wasn't time.
Yeah.
What kind of firefighting equipment would have been on board a boat like this to maybe be able to put out a fire in the early stages?
Yeah, they've got suppression systems within the engine compartment. They certainly have fire extinguishers. We heard earlier that they had inspected the boat, I think, less than a year ago. So they didn't find any safety problems. So, you know, there are precautions taken. There's no question about that. But we did see the intensity of that fire, and because of the intensity and the heat, they couldn't get close enough to board them, which is that's going to be very difficult for the first responders. And
then also, Mark, just from a firefighting aspect, it was difficult because you needed to put as much water as you could on the boat, but you didn't want to put too much to then make it sink.
Yes. It was kind of a catch-22, and we saw what happened. 75-foot boat sunk, 10 feet still sticking out in the air, so we've got 65 feet under the water, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's still unfolding tragedy there in Southern California. We appreciate you coming in. Mark Neveau, former FEMA coordinator. Appreciate the insight.